Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on my channel. It is Kev or Kevin here, whatever you want to call me. And in this week's video, we are making another shadow box. Now, I do want to say a little disclaimer here that I don't only make shadow boxes. I know I do or have made quite a few and I've made some in the past, but really the reason I'm making them now mostly is because the space I'm living in is transitional. It is not my permanent space. I don't have all my craft supplies. I don't have a lot of storage area. I have a storage unit with most of my stuff in it. In fact, if you saw my 90s girls bedroom shadow box video, I went to the storage unit to get some stuff. In the future, there'll be more standalone projects like my cardboard table. Nope, card table, miniature, cardboard table. I have ideas for bigger projects in the future. It's just right now, this is a transition period in my life. So a lot of shadow boxes. But I wanted to make this because something I like to do is when I'm making these shadow boxes, I try and do a technique that I plan on using for my big pop culture dollhouse I want to do eventually. I haven't been doing miniatures that long, just a few years, and so there's a lot of techniques I don't know or I'm not very good at, so I like to practice them. This one, I wanted to practice making brick. I've never made 1/12 scale brick. I know there's lots of different ways to make 1/12 scale brick, so I wanted to try it out and practice. For this video, I followed a Queen City Minis tutorial, and I will link that in the description below so you can go watch that if you want to follow along with her. Do not follow along with me. This is not a tutorial video. This is me trying to follow a tutorial. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the camera around and we're gonna get started on making some bricks and some other stuff. There's some stuff on the bricks, but you'll see. Let's turn it around. The first step, as always, is to prepare this, and I always give the warning to make sure you use some kind of screwdriver or some kind of tweezer to help yourself open these because they are pointy and painful. If you didn't watch my video last week, I had some problems with the measurements of the shadow box and things not fitting correctly, so I wanted to make sure I didn't run into that again, which is why I'm here starting off with measuring out the actual frame of the shadow box to make sure it all fits. I have an idea in my head of what I want this wall to look like based on a movie theater from my childhood. I could not find the actual one, but I have a similar-ish one that I'm gonna put up on screen here. And so what I needed to do is I needed to start off by separating the top brick from like the bottom stone brick part. Also, you might have just heard my cat shake his head. Once I knew what size the brick part of the wall needed to be, I got my parchment paper out because I didn't want the brick to stick to anything. I think in Queen City Mini's tutorial, she actually suggests that you use wax paper, but I don't have any. I used parchment paper, which for the most part does work. I will say it does wrinkle a little bit and gets kind of weird. And I'll explain more how that might have affected this later, but for the most part, it was fine. I made the original template on the piece of paper that comes inside the shadow box that like tells you the size, but once I had that down, I put the parchment paper on top and transferred the template onto the parchment paper so I could work on that. My only word of warning is that the pencil that's on the parchment paper will kind of come off on the paper clay, but I knew I was going to paint it, so I was fine with that. And here I am just showing off the paper clay for some reason. This is something I got at Michael's. I got it on sale, and it's just air dry clay. Nothing really special about it. You don't have to bake it, and it dries in the air. Pretty fun. In Queen City Mini's tutorial, she does recommend making this little tool, and I will say, for some reason, I was very nervous about making this. I didn't think I'd be able to, but it was actually incredibly easy, like she said, and it does come in handy. I'm not going to tell you how to make it because it is part of her tutorial and I want you to go watch that. So go watch that to get an idea of how to make this, because if you're going to make bricks, it really, really, really does come in handy. If you're making bricks in 1/12 scale, that is. The hardest part about this clay is actually trying to cut off a piece to work with. In her tutorial, I think she said she uses like a thin wire, which I tried using some armature wire because that's all I really had. And then I realized that the only thing I really had that would work was my triangle ruler, and it got it very covered in clay and dirty, but it worked in the end. So maybe just get like some cheese cutting wire or something. I don't know. I mean, I know there's wire to specifically cut clay. I just didn't have any. I use water to join the different pieces together because she recommends doing this in her video. I don't really understand air dry clay and how it works with water and adding water. So I don't know. It works. It rejoined the pieces. Then I rolled it out so that it was bigger than what I needed. And then I just cut off so it was the exact shape. I did put it back inside the frame to make sure it would still fit and make sure it would exactly fit side to side. However, what I will warn you is this air dry clay, everyone says it has minimal shrinkage when it dries. All the reviews said that. However, it shrank quite a bit for me. I think like 1/4 of an inch total. So it does shrink. It can shrink. Just be careful when you're working with it. Again, because this is someone else's tutorial, I don't want to show you step by step every single thing I did. I'm not going to give you super details because the tutorial is linked below and you should go watch it. So I'm going to kind of just speed through some of these steps. But basically what I did is I just made it into brick. And if you want to know how, if you want details, go watch our video. It's a really great video. My one word of warning for this, or some tips I can give you, is don't roll out the clay too thin. This is something I did, and maybe that's why it shrank a lot, or I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure why it ended up shrinking so much, but what I will say again is don't roll it out too thin. I did cut through it in a couple spots. In fact, one of the bricks fell off and I had to glue it back on later. So you just don't want to roll too thin, and if you do roll thin, to make sure that you don't cut all the way through, because I was using the back of the craft knife so it wasn't completely sharp, and it still managed to go all the way through the clay. Here I am showing you the next morning how much space there's on each side. It's about 1/8 of an inch on each side, so it ends up being 1/4, but I wanted to glue it in the center because I felt like I could hide it better if I did 1/8 on each side rather than 1/4 on one side. I didn't want it to be noticeable if I could get away with it. Because there was a lot of pencil marks on this, and it is a slight off-white color, I did start off, which she also recommends, I started off painting this white. While I was waiting for the white paint to dry on the top brick part, I decided to start working on the bottom stone. I don't really know what to call it, but like this bottom stone bricky part thing. So I got some mat board out and I cut out the length that I needed. I wanted to imitate some kind of grout line, although I don't think these have like real grout, they just have indents. So I wanted to go with that if possible. I started off by making this little grid, and then I started cutting them out. The way I did this is I cut the mat board, but I didn't cut all the way through. I tried to do about halfway, and then if you stick your X-Acto knife in there, you can kind of peel up a little bit, and it kind of just rips. You only want to take off the top layer of mat board. You don't want to cut all the way through, and then it leaves like an indent in it. Here I am showing you what the indents look like, and as you can see, they kind of just look a little bit more standy-outy. Standy-outy, you know, that's an adjective we use here. Because there were also pencil lines on this, and it is slightly off-white, and there was a little bit of fibers coming up from the middle part of the mat board that I wanted to lay flat. I just went ahead and painted this all a flat white color as well. I set that to the side to dry and took out this Folk Art paint I got. It is a red clay color that is textured. It is the only color I could find at my Michaels that was anything close to brick, and I'm not good at color mixing at all. So I just grabbed this. It is textured, so it's a little bit more, but there was a sale as there always is. So I got it 30% off. But I'm gonna be honest, I don't see the texture in this paint. Maybe it's because I had already textured the wall, but to me, it just looked like a red clay color. I don't know. Maybe if it was on something flat again, like a canvas or something, you would see the texture. I just personally don't know if this was worth the extra money. I just got it because I had to get it. I didn't have a choice. While I waited for that to dry, because there's a lot of dry time in this project, I painted the bottom sticky outy portion with this sandy tan color, which isn't a great color necessarily, but this is a color that I kept seeing over and over again in these weird kind of stone brick things. I don't really know what they are. I don't know what they're made out of. Someone can probably tell me in the comments. Something I do when I'm going to glue something down to the back of a shadow box is I just kind of scratch it up with my X-Acto knife, so that way it gives it something to kind of adhere to. I don't know if this actually helps at all, but I think it does, because it's very, very, very smooth, and I want something to grab onto the glue. I dumped a bunch of glue on the back of the brick, and then I flipped it over, and I tried to center it as best as I could. Then I did the same thing with the tan bricks. I just put a bunch of glue, flipped it over, and luckily this one fit exact because no clay, no shrinkage. I'll spare all the details on this because I've made these many times, but I wanted to make little frames for the movie posters. So I took my miter shears, which I finally fixed. I finally figured out what was wrong with them. If you've watched some of my previous videos, you'll know that it wasn't working, but I fixed it, cut these, and then I just made frames for all the 4 movie posters that I printed out, which these 4 movie posters are some of my favorite Wes Anderson movies. I don't know, I kind of love them all. Yeah, I kind of love them all. I do have one that's the least favorite, but we won't mention it by name. I want these to look like black plastic / metal-y, shiny type frames, and I originally did have a cannoli chip container I was going to cut up to put plastic in front of the literal poster part. However, as much as I washed it, I could not get it to stop smelling like cannolis, and then I could not find any other plastic, and so I just decided to just move on with my life, and it's fine. The whole miniature did not need to smell like cannolis forever. I was afraid it would mold or something. As you saw, I painted the frames black, and then I just put a layer of Mod Podge on top so they look kind of shiny, kind of plastic, kind of metal-y. A lot of E adjectives happening today. So I decided that I thought the brick and the tan, especially the tan part, were just too bright, too vibrant. I needed to do some kind of dark wash on them. However, I didn't wash the paint water very well, or watered down paint for the wash very well, and so some parts ended up looking very streaky, very dark in a way that I wasn't planning. However, I'm one of those people who is bad at trusting the process. And so I just went full steam ahead and just put down a ton of dark wash. In the end, I am lucky because I do like how it turned out. But man, was I freaking out for a second there. once it was dried, this is what it looked like, and honestly, I really do like it. It was supposed to look grimy, like an old building that had been outside for a really long time, as buildings tend to be, and I just like how it ended up looking in the end. I like the weathered look to it. Now came the time to put all the posters together and hang them up in their place. After I finished all the movie posters and the coming soon signs, I started to put these on here, and for like a good minute or two, I was really conflicted on if I wanted to put all 4 on there, if I only wanted to put 3. I kind of liked more brick showing through, but in the end, I just thought it looked nicer having all 4 on there. I had already made them, which, I mean, isn't a good excuse. That's not the sole reason why I put it on there, because it was already made. I just thought it looked good, and I just like the crowded look of it all. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know in the comments if you think it looks better with 3, or if you like it better how it turned out. I put glue on the posters, put them on, put my 1, 2, 3 blocks on top to hold them down while they dried, and then everything was peachy keen and done. Finally. Felt like it took forever. Here it is all done. I put the frame part of the shadow box on, and then I flipped it over, put it on, and it was done. So let's take a look. And that's it for this video. Look, I am one to constantly question the process. They say trust the process. I'm questioning it. I'm questioning it nonstop every step of the way. I tell myself just trust the process, but the other half of my brain, the bad half, is saying don't trust it, question it. But you know what? In the end, sorry, the ring light is abrasive, but in the end, I quite enjoy how this turned out. It's rather large, which is what I wanted, because I wanted a big swath of brick to practice on. I have to make a lot of brick for this pop culture dollhouse idea that I have. Yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. I don't know. I mean, there's some things I would change, obviously, but I feel like, again, I do these to practice techniques I don't know much about or plan on using more in the future. So a lot of these shadow boxes are just practices that I can hang up and still look nice on the wall. Because like from far away, you can't tell if there's anything wrong with it. It's only if I were to tell you what's wrong with it, and I'm not gonna tell you what's wrong with it because I'm probably the only one that thinks that's wrong with it. If you have any guesses of what my pop culture dollhouse is going to be, I would love if you'd comment and let me know. I'm gonna be honest, I probably won't respond and tell you if you're correct because there's like a 5% chance that I could switch to a different dollhouse. I don't think I will, but it could happen, and I don't want to lead people on to believing that I'm gonna do one over the other, so I like to do both eventually. But yeah, if you have any inkling, any idea, let me know. I'm interested if anybody can guess. That's it for this week. A little bit of brick, a little bit of Wes Anderson. I really like it. I'm gonna hang it up. That's it for this video. If you like me or you like miniatures, make sure you hit that subscribe button below, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye.